We are living in a nation that's selectively wise, but there is ignorance among it. You can read it.
Harriet Moore and his wife were teachers here in Brevard County, Florida. In fact, Mr. Moore was the principal of the colored high school in Cocoa, Florida, close by. Mr. Moore was going around, we're talking the mid-1940s, late 1940s, registering black people to vote as Democrats. He and his wife and their two daughters would get into their car, old Model T Ford, and drive all over rural Florida, registering black people to vote as Democrats. Now, the reason that's important is because up until 1947, black people could not join the Democratic Party. My parents were Republicans. So when Harriet Moore starts registering blacks as Democrats, because the Supreme Court said the Democratic Party could no longer exclude blacks, black folks joining the Democratic Party meant power to black voters in Florida. So Harriet Moore and his family went on these trips on the weekends, registered people, and everybody knew, the Klan knew. The most powerful figures in Florida knew what Moore was doing, and it was dangerous. In 1951, Christmas time, Mr. Moore and his wife were celebrating the anniversary here in their home. And many family members had come in to be with them for this celebration. Christmas night, after their family meeting, they come here to their home, and the Klan had planted a bomb beneath their bedroom, right over here. And the FBI later said it wasn't dynamite. It was too powerful. It was probably nitroglycerin. In any case, when this bomb went off, Mr. Moore's body and his wife was thrown into the sea. A family member later said that every bone in Harriet Moore's body was broken. He wasn't killed instantly. People say that the blast was heard as far away as Titusville. That's 4 or 5 miles from here. So all these people now come running, having heard this explosion. And some family members, he wasn't dead yet, took him in a car to Sanford, because there was no hospital that would accept blacks at that time. So they had to drive from Mims all the way over to Sanford to have a doctor see Mr. Moore. And the story is that he was in the back seat of the car with his mom, had his head in her lap as they drove to Sanford. And as that car went over the 1792 bridge, he died. So Dr. Lancaster Starks, black physician from Beeland, was sent to where they had him in treatment. And just for his wife, his mother's sake, he fumbled with the body, but he knew that Moore was dead. Harriet Moore lived a few days more. People tried to tell her not to go to the funeral for her husband, but she insisted on going. She did. And then she died a few days later. Her daughter, Evangeline, said to those folks who said, well, if she hadn't gone to that funeral, she would have lived. But Evangeline told me and others that her mother's injury was so severe she could not have possibly survived it. I should point out that, incidentally, Moore was a very well-known figure nationally. Thurgood Marshall spent the night in this house some months before this all happened. People knew Mr. Moore. When he was killed, the story made news all over the country. Even in the Soviet Union, they told about what happened to Mr. Moore. So, that's the story. Brevard County is doing the right thing in recognizing Mr. Moore and his wife, Harriet, for the sacrifice they made. But this story needs to be told. This story needs to be told. Harriet Moore, with the possible exception of Osceola, was the bravest man who ever walked in Florida. Harriet Moore and his wife had orange groves. In fact, the area that we're looking at here, this was all part of the orange grove. Here's one right here. These are Harriet Moore trees. These are Harriet Moore trees. All of this area was orange groves. Here's another one. This is an old orange tree. This is an old orange tree. And I grew up 40 miles from here in DeLand. Beautiful park.
Yes, my name is Kershonda Wright. I'm the cultural center leader here, and I do tours and we plan events. So right now we're in the middle of our Christmas open house where you come in, you can place an ornament on the tree, and we'll take your picture and you'll be part of our celebration for this holiday season. So you was gonna place it at the top. Oh, that teddy bear. Okay. Okay, look back at me once you get it on there.
All right, that's on.
All right.
Okay. This is the decision I was telling you about. This case arose in Texas, and it was a case in which the U.S. Supreme Court decided that the Democratic Party had to admit black people, and that is what started the power shift in the South. Blacks joining the Democratic Party. They'd previously been just Republicans, and that's why they killed Harriet Moore, because this law was upheld, and black people had access to real political power in the South. This is my favorite picture. They called him the professor, and he was a sickly child. He was never a strong person physically. But this is my favorite picture of Harriet Moore.
When they were bringing people from Africa and they were doing the slave trade, they were stealing people. So when you steal somebody, they're not going to be cooperative, right? So they had to do something to equalize because they knew the terrain much better than they did. So they would chain them, and you see the chain restricted the use of their feet, their ankles, their wrists, and their hands. But that wasn't enough. They also added this ball. The chain weighed about 30 pounds, but this ball weighs about 70. So they were weighted down 100 pounds. And that going up against a person who doesn't have anything restricting their movement is how they were able to capture them. This is a portrait of Voices and Votes, and this is about voting during the Jim Crow era. And what was significant is that they had 3 things to deter us from testing, from voting. One was the poll tax. As you can see, they made you pay a tax to actually vote. And if your family hadn't paid it, you have to catch up your family tax in order for you to vote. They made you take a test, and here we have someone actually studying for the test. And then they would have an arbitrary test where they would make you guess how many gumballs or how many marbles are in a jar. And if you couldn't guess correctly, then you couldn't vote. None of this had anything to do with your ability to vote. It was just a deterrent from you voting.
These must be his shoes, Harriet Moore's shoes.
So this is the Moore's homes. Don't be alarmed. There are mannequins in the home.
So how close to reality am I looking at standing here in the Moore's
This
living
home
room?
is as close as you're going to get. We had the daughter, Evangeline Moore, actually come in, and she was the one that gave us the layout and the things that were in the home. The house is actually 10 feet to the left of where it actually sat, and instead of it facing this direction, it faced Old Dixie. But because it is a negative connotation that has to do with walking through back doors for Black people, we considered that most people would be coming from the direction of the center to the home, and we just reversed it so people wouldn't feel like we were treating them like less than. And as you can see, we have the Moore's bedroom. It is the only home in the house that has a closet. And even though we would consider that not to be such a closet, at that time period when they built this home in 1929, this was tremendous, okay? Like, this was a 3-bedroom home that had an indoor bathroom, an indoor kitchen, and indoor lighting before they had the Rural Act. Normally in the South would have had a rectangular or square table, but the Moors, being more affluent, as you can see, and the influence of the North, had a round table. The South was a very patriotic society, so most homes had square rectangular tables where the parents would sit at the head positions and the children would sit alongside them. This gives you an indication in the Moore household exactly how their family operated. A round table doesn't put anyone in a power position. It puts people on equal footing. So they had a very open relationship, and an open relationship with their children. They had a Victrola, a sewing machine, a radio, a typewriter, and an upright piano. These are all the comforts of home that you could have at that time. You'll note that they do not have a television because it had not been invented yet. But this home, even though it may be modest to us, was a high-end home for that time period. They were not just living great for Black people, they were living great, period. They have their children's bedroom. And again, because they were more affluent than other people, this was very nice for that time period. Okay? They had a bathroom, and this is a linen closet. Normally, shotgun style homes such as this would end right here. And then you would have an outdoor bathroom and an outdoor kitchen. They may have had a potbelly stove in the corner to warm the house in the winter. That's it. But the Moors, being more affluent, had more home. And as you can see, they have a hallway with an indoor bathroom. And his mother would have had been here in the guest room. Now, we also have back here, we have enclosed the back porch. Normally this would have just been screened in, but this is where the Moors would have done their laundry. And as you can see, we have those things such as a basin, a scrub board, an ironing board, and an iron. And then we would step into the kitchen. Because they were more affluent than most people, they had a high-end wood-burning stove with a water reservoir. This would mean that they would always have hot water for their home. And as you can see, we have the cast iron skillet because that is what most people would have been using in that time period to cook. My great-grandmother always used this. Have to wait for somebody to die to get the good seasoned ones. And that's the best cornbread and fried chicken you're going to eat.
I have one at home that came down from our family.
Yes.
Same as this one.
Yes. The farmhouse sink. And this is important because that was really what people used back in those time periods. But what was unusual about the Moors is that they had a cupboard. Most people in the South would have had a pantry, and a pantry would have been shelving with 2 doors. Mrs. Moore had a lot of influence from the North, and as you can see here, you would place the flour here, and then they would sift it out here for usage. So a cupboard was something that was a northern thing. However, Mrs. Moore, with her influence and them being a little bit more affluent than most people, were able to have that here for her home. She had a small family, so she really didn't need a lot. And then of course we have the ice box, and as you can see, this ice box is where you would place the block of ice at the top. They either picked it up at the store, or they would have it delivered, and then you would place the items that you wanted to keep cool in the bottom in the cooler. Now, as you can see, we have a few items on top, and I always think this is interesting. You see how this is the cottage cheese, how it was sold. And then of course we have soda. Now, soda was originally sold as a medicine. It was for people who had upset stomachs, so they got it at the drugstore. Now, this is the original serving size of soda, and this is a double. And this is actually the original logo of 7-Up. Now, the bread was sold at the local bakery. It was usually wrapped in parchment paper, usually had a small child or a baby on there to indicate freshness. And you had to pay to get it sliced because it originally wasn't sold sliced.
Thank you.
You're
for
very
the tour of the Moore home.
That's where the expression, the greatest thing since
Sliced
sliced bread
bread.
came from.
Yes.
Exactly. Thank you so much. Harriet T. Moore, his wife Harriet, and their daughter Evangeline are buried here. This is a spot that holds champions. Mr. Moore and his wife were killed when the Klan planted a bomb beneath the bedroom of their home. Mr. Moore was a nationally known figure. Thurgood Marshall was a friend of his. And when this killing took place, it made news all over the world, certainly all over America. Harriet T. Moore, with the possible exception of Osceola, was the bravest man who ever walked in Florida. Because he alone was going around in rural areas of Florida registering black people to vote as Democrats. Always touch the shoe.
We are living in a nation that's selectively wise, but there is ignorance abundant. You can read it in their eyes. It's those who are silent that seem so colorblind. Equality is neutral. It's time they realize. So let's teach the truth and uncover all the lies, as well as history unmentioned, all the intolerance and cries. We are all born from our mothers, so loved as she should be. All mothers are special, only the blind can see. Those sided with hatred are too colorblind for me. So let's teach the truth and uncover all